Let's fix why you're struggling to sell coaching offers. I call this the law of best practice, and I apply this to all of the clients who I've helped. Now, the ones who have actually taken action on this have become multi-million dollar, if not like, six-figure, multi-six-figure businesses. And the ones who do not follow this usually still wonder, why are they struggling to grow their business on social media? I've got some case studies listed in the description if you want to check that out and you want specific numbers. But for now, let's get into the video, okay? So the law of best practice. This is just a fancy way of saying what is currently working for successful people in my niche. I say my niche, but honestly, this can also be applied to either an adjacent niche or even just like honestly what's working on social media in general. A lot of times, like for one of my clients, so what I mean is like if there's a content format, a style of filming videos, a trending for example, street interview videos were really, really popular. They still are popular now, but they were really, really popular a couple of years ago. So for one of my clients, what we did was, okay, no one in your industry, in this niche, has created street interview videos. We were like, okay, is this on brand? How do we make it on brand? How do we make it relevant? How do we make it so that it's not just entertaining and it's more like people understand that, hey, through these videos, we have products that we're selling and all that, okay? So what we did was we figured that out and we started to implement that type of video. And they were the first ones in their niche, in their industry, to do that type of video. And after posting that video, it was the highest performing one. And we were like, okay, let's go all in on this. And even to this day, it's one of the most popular formats that they make. And through that, they were known as the guys who have and own this content format. So that is one thing that is really, really interesting to look into as well. And it's all testing. It's all testing. Now, this seems pretty simple, right? It's just like what's currently working in my niche. It seems like this should be a pretty simple thing to do. The issue is a lot of coaches don't actually know what the best practices look like in their niche. There's one huge mistake that I see a lot of people make. That mistake is the correlation versus causation fallacy. Let me just give you a brief example of what this might look like. So let's just say you notice your competitor is posting daily short form videos on Instagram and on TikTok. Now also, your competitor is posting about getting new clients every single week, okay? So now what you think to yourself is, okay, so this means if I post more short form videos, I should be getting more clients every single week. You think like, okay, this is the correlation. In reality, what could be very much possible is simply that their long form YouTube videos have caused them to attract and close more clients. Okay, and what they did was with that money, they hire a video editor. And what the video editor does is he takes this long form content and then he repurposes it into short form video. So these guys were like, hey, we're making all this money with YouTube. Let's hire an editor to take our YouTube videos and then turn them into short form content, and let's start investing into here. Right? So this is like actually what's going on. Now it's getting a little confusing with all these arrows all over the place. So the true correlation, the true causation is this, right? But you might look at this and think, wait a second, I have to invest into short form content. I'm not saying it's bad to invest in short form content. Obviously, I'm always going to lean towards long form content just because it's helped my clients so much. And so as a coach, I think a lot of people are probably good at what you do, whether you're a fitness coach, a health coach, a business coach, and in your own sort of niche, right? But when it comes to understanding social media trends, when it comes to studying, because what I do all day is pretty much look into competitors. I look into the scene and I see like, okay, this guy's trying this, this guy's trying this, whereas you're probably focused on your own business or your own niche. So I'll even give you a real world example here, and then I'll share a few things to avoid so that you have the full confidence in your content helping you get more clients. So for this real world example, I had this conversation with someone who has an Amazon FBA coaching business. They teach people how to do Amazon FBA private labeling. Now, you don't need to know everything about Amazon FBA private labeling to understand this. You really just need to know three things. So the three things are right here. What you need to know is that this was the most popular make money online business model around 10 years ago. There's also a slightly higher barrier of entry, usually requires around like $5,000 to start. And the goal here is to launch a product on Amazon and then leverage Amazon's existing customer base to make semi-passive income. And this is the goal, right? This is what people are after. Like, who cares about all this stuff? This is what they want, is semi-passive income, right? That's the whole selling point to this. Let's talk about the best practices for their coaching business and why other coaches in this niche were consistently getting clients, whereas this client's coaching business was starting to stagnate. So this client was very consistent with posting organic content. It was very clear that he's an expert because he openly shows his Amazon dashboard. So he'd be like, hey, here's how my sales are doing. He would also share customer success and student success, client success, whatever you want to call it, consistently be showing, hey, look at this person, look how much money they're making, look at this little win, look at this big win that they're having. And then also he can get really detailed when doing Q&A. So he would answer a lot of questions for people, and he'd be answering them in a lot of detail and give a lot of people help and free just knowledge and free value, right? But we noticed that despite him being consistent with his content, creating really good content, and despite him matching the same style of content that we thought the top dogs were creating in his niche, what we realized is still his inbound leads were stalled. So his organic growth in inbound leads was kind of stalled, and at the time, this was really, really confusing to me because I have other clients who are not nearly as consistent with creating content, and still they are getting plenty of inbound leads. Now, this led me to take an afternoon to think, like, what are we doing wrong here? Like, if my other clients, like, if this is working for my other clients, why is it not working for him in this niche? So I did a deep dive, afternoon deep dive, and the ultimate conclusion was simply we were not following the best practices for this specific niche. And here's how I found that out step by step. So what I did was I found the top 10 Amazon coaches, because that's his niche, right? Amazon. Although, he has a specific niche of the private labeling, FBA private labeling, but I broadened it up a little bit, and I wanted to look at just the whole entire aspect of Amazon coaches, people teaching this business model and Amazon adjacent business models. What are they doing online? And I noticed that there were two different groups. So we had group 1, we have group 2 here, and looks like a question mark, but that is supposed to be a 2. Boom. Okay, and we had group 2. Now, first group was actually making like 10 to 20 times more views than my client. And group 2 here was getting like 2 to like 3 times more views on their videos. Now, the first group mainly talked about Amazon arbitrage and Amazon wholesale, and these are seen kind of as like more beginner-friendly, lower barrier entry ways to make money on Amazon. And group 2 mostly talked about Amazon FBA private labeling, which is the exact same business model as my client. But also, I say mostly here, this is really, really important. They were mostly talking about FBA, private labeling. But also, they were talking about TikTok Shop and Amazon arbitrage. A lot of their videos were actually about this. And then they would be, making Amazon FBA private label videos as well. Now, these are more hype and more beginner friendly. TikTok Shop specifically gained a lot of hype in the last few months, if not like this last year. Amazon arbitrage has always been kind of like a beginner friendly way to start, right? Hey, go to your Walmart, find something, flip something. Just like you don't need a lot of money to start, right? So what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that there is not a lot of organic demand to learn this specific business model. And specifically, we want to pay attention to there's not a lot of organic demand for this business model. Now, the good thing is whenever the client runs ads or does in-person events, right? So if he's doing ads, he's doing in-person events, what he can do easily, and what he has done, is leverage his organic content. So that way people can see like, oh, okay, so ads, boom, look at his organic content. In-person events, even at in-person events, like when he's talking on stage, he'd be like, hey, check, like this is my YouTube channel. These are client interviews that he's filmed, client success studies. And then so that way people can see that how knowledgeable he is, how experienced he is in this niche, which translates to his coaching program, making more money. Ads are great, in-person events are great, but how can we continue? Because this is like really niche. It's like a micro niche sort of thing. Now, this also told us that the most popular personal brands in this space were not solely talking about private labeling. What they had to do was find a semi-related business model that had a lot more organic demand. So this demand was really, really high, right? Semi-related, like I said, there's different types of businesses when it comes to Amazon in itself. What they were doing was the most popular guys online, they were making content about it. So they were capturing attention from this, like it has high demand, so they were capturing this attention, making content about it, but then they were convincing them in this content that actually there is a superior business model. And that superior business model would be Amazon FBA private labeling. This right here was the best practices for this niche. And that's when I found out, like, okay, wait a second. Like, just because one thing works for this coaching business in general, like, hey, these are like best practices for just having a coaching business and marketing a coaching business and getting clients online through creating content, getting inbound leads. We also have to look at it through a case-by-case scenario. Every single niche is different, which, seems like common sense. But this was like one of the first info clients that I was working with, one of the first coaching clients I was working with. So this was a process for me too. Now, I do want to go over some mistakes to avoid when doing this research, because like I said, I get it. Like, if you're a coach, then you're not going to be having the time to do all this research yourself probably. But if you do, here are some mistakes to avoid. Number one is, just because there's low organic demand does not mean that it can't be a wildly profitable coaching business, right? If you're pricing and packaging your offers properly, then you'll be able to do some light paid advertising. If like the organic demand isn't completely there, you can do some light paid advertising and you still will get a great ROI as long as everything is set up properly. The second thing is, don't assume that because a competitor is going viral that you need to copy their content. Because virality, it might mean that they're getting followers and they're getting views, but it doesn't always build a client pipeline, and that's what we're optimizing for here, right? You don't want a bunch of junk followers, because one of my clients is going through this right now where he has a lot of these junk followers, and we are just trying to reestablish his brand, reestablish his presence as an actual expert rather than an entertainer, because people are not going to buy high ticket coaching packages from entertainers. They're like, bro, you're an entertainer, you make memes, like, why would I trust you to solve this issue, right? Whereas if you build your whole entire brand around being an expert, completely different story. So this is really important. Also, don't get caught up in thinking that consistency alone will save you. Obviously, consistency is really, really important, but that's what this entire video has been about, right? If you're consistently making the wrong type of content, then and you haven't structured your social media presence to be taken as a serious authority, as a serious expert, then you'll always struggle to grow a coaching business. And lastly, if you want me to give you a complimentary audit, break this whole thing down for you, like I do this all the time, so I could probably just send you a quick voice note explaining everything. Just DM me on IG at Akash Kanver. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I just want to build goodwill in this niche of coaching business owners, grow my personal brand, and I'll probably make a video out of the audit. But this seems like it's probably a fair trade. You know what I'm saying? You get an audit from someone who does this all the time, and I get to kind of build my personal brand, make some more content, and help more people, hopefully. So send me a DM, and I'll see you in the next video.